Tales from the Half Moon Inn presents Scary Stories, The Haunted Farmhouse, Part 3. Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. The cold, hard rain poured on my umbrella as I briskly walked to my kitchen door. It was a cold and wet Friday in March. The weather that day was quite a contrast to the practically balmy conditions of the previous week. A week had already passed since Enoch, Dan, Christina, and I shared our spooky adventure. Dan didn't know what to make of the events of that night. Enoch and Christina, on the other hand, were convinced that a ghostly presence had caused footsteps, banging, and the upstairs toilet to flush. I loved them both dearly, but I couldn't understand how they could come to such a fantastical conclusion. The sounds had indeed been exciting and frightful, but the unexpected and the unknown always create that kind of physiological response. This house was old, and my family had only been living there since Christmas Eve. Like my dad said, it takes a while to get used to the sounds of a house after moving in. The house may have been new to us, but in reality it was a very old house. In fact, it was a house in need of a lot of TLC. Then add in the fact that while we had been discussing the possibility that it was haunted, we heard those unexpected sounds. Who wouldn't have been on edge? Who wouldn't have wondered if an intruder had gotten in? It's one thing to get caught up in the excitement of the moment, but it's quite another thing to allow that moment to carry you away in a stream of fantasy. No, nothing supernatural had happened. Ghosts weren't a real thing. If such a thing existed in the 21st century, then there would be undeniable evidence. Virtually everyone had a smartphone, so why hadn't an authentic image been captured? The reason is simple. No compelling ghostly image or video exists because phantoms don't exist. Just as our experience had a rational explanation, so too did all of the supposedly ghostly experiences reported by others. The simple, normal, and reasonable explanations are almost always the right explanations. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I disarmed and then rearmed the home security system as soon as I got inside of the house. It's the kind of activity that becomes a habit. My parents insisted that I always armed the security system whenever I was home alone. I didn't mind doing it because it made me feel safe. I had gym class during 8th period, so I was thirsty as a racehorse. Having put my phone and my backpack on the counter, I turned to the fridge to get some sweet tea. As I downed the big, delicious glass of sweet tea, I went to pick up my phone to check if I had gotten any new messages. The problem was that it wasn't there. I was certain that I had put my phone on the kitchen counter. I distinctly remembered placing it there. A teenage girl doesn't simply lose her phone. No way. Where was it? It had to be somewhere close. Maybe I had knocked it off of the counter and onto the floor. I searched for my phone with a laser-like focus. Concern hadn't hit me until my search of the kitchen ended unsuccessfully. It was at that point that I began to become stressed. My phone had all of my pictures, notes, and musings. Although it seemed senseless, I checked the rest of our living area to no avail. It wasn't in the bathroom, living room, kitchen, or dining room. Then I faintly heard the bell sound that my phone makes when it receives a text message. After several more texts came in, I pinpointed where it was coming from. I opened the door to the unused kitchen in the old section of the house, and there it was. My phone was lying on top of the kitchen counter. Absolutely confounded, I snatched up my phone and returned back to our living quarters in the newer part of the house. There had to be a rational explanation for how my phone had gotten into a room that I hadn't been in for a week. My mind must have played a trick on me. Phones don't grow legs and walk away. Yet, if I had opened the door to that unused kitchen in the house and put my phone on the counter, and then walked back into our apartment without remembering doing so, then there could be something wrong with my brain. 17 is too young to go mental or to have memory loss. The thing was that this wasn't the first time that I had put something down and later found it in a strange place that I didn't remember putting it. It had happened several times over the past week. 3 days ago, I had put the TV remote on the living room table only to find it behind the mirror in the bathroom cabinet. 2 days before that, I had placed my necklace on the end table in the living room, and then found it in the egg drawer in the refrigerator a few days later. Who puts their necklace in the refrigerator? Maybe the nasty fall that I had had about a month ago when I slipped on ice in the mall parking lot had something to do with this. Having had hit my head could have explained my headaches as well as the misplaced objects. I told myself that I would tell my parents if this kept happening. My mom and dad were still under stress due to everything related to the move. Fixing up the old section of the house was an expensive project, and the last thing that I wanted to do was to be the cause of further stress. Mom and Dad had always been the best parents, and I knew that if I mentioned my apparent memory issues to them, that they would spare no expense in getting me medical care. Since I wasn't sure if my experiences with apparently misplacing things was a big deal, I decided to keep it to myself for a while. Thank goodness it was Friday, because that meant that the crew would be coming over later that night. It was our first official meeting of the Creep Squad. Friday Night Frights was on the menu, and it was the perfect thing to take my mind off of the subject of my mind. Several hours of spooky stories was always a good way to escape the troubles of the real world. Checking my phone to see who had texted me earlier, I saw that it was Christina. Christina texted, "Hey girl, how are you? Are we still on for tonight?" "Hey, I'm good, and you can bet your bottom that we are still on for tonight," I texted back to her. "I hope that we tell the stories this time instead of becoming the story," Christina texted. "Haha, I know what you mean. Last Friday night was something else," I responded as I sat down on the couch. "So, has Enoch asked you to be his girlfriend yet?" Christina questioned. "Chrissy, don't push it. We're good friends. There's no rush. If he asks, then he asks." "Felicity, tell me something. What will you say if he does ask you?" "Let Enoch ask first, and then I'll let you know." Christina texted me back, "Haha, you're so mysterious. I'll see you later." "See you soon," I texted back to Christina. I smiled as I put my phone down. Having 3 good friends so soon after moving to a new school was something that I really appreciated. Enoch, Christina, and Dan made me feel like I belonged. That was no small matter, since it was only a couple of months since I had moved from Charleston, South Carolina to Junction Ridge, New York. My peaceful reflection was short-lived, because out of nowhere the security alarm went off and said, "Warning, there is something in the house. You are not alone. You are never alone. We are always here. Check the keypad for details." My heart pounded like a drum against my ribcage. A cold chill originated at the bottom of my neck and poured down my spine like an icy waterfall. The blaring alarm was unnerving at any time, but it's infinitely more unnerving when you are home by yourself and it tells you that you aren't alone. I had heard the alarm get triggered in the past, but I had never heard it say those words. Those haunting words. "Warning, there is something in the house. You are not alone. You are never alone. We are always here." What security system is programmed to say that? It didn't make any sense. Alarms are supposed to warn of a sensor being triggered. It's supposed to indicate if a window or door has been opened, or if the window glass has been shattered. Alarm systems aren't supposed to do what this one had done. Was it my brain? Was I really losing it? The alarm sirens kept wailing, and the automated voice kept repeating the chilling words. "Warning, there is something in the house. You are not alone. You are never alone. We are always here. See the keypad for details." The Unsolved Mysteries theme song played on my phone. It was my ringtone. The dispatch center was on the line. I picked up my phone. It looks like an alarm was triggered at your house. Are you okay? Do you want us to send an officer over? The dispatcher asked. Yes, the alarm is going off. I don't know what's going on. Please send someone over to check it out. Fear grasped me as I grabbed my softball bat and waited on our front porch for the officer to arrive. I watched the rain. Although my body was trembling, I was ready to act. My heart was still pounding, but it was pounding a bit softer now that I had a softball bat and knew that the police were on the way. If there was someone in the house, the cops would find them, and they would determine where they got in. After what seemed like an eternity, the police siren grew closer and closer. It went from a distant echo to a blaring howl. I had never expected the sound of police sirens to give me comfort, but on that day they brought me joyous relief. The strobing lights of the police car were like a warm blanket over my trembling body as the car pulled into my driveway. Ma'am, are you all right? I'm Officer Brody from the Junction Ridge Sheriff's Department. Please turn off the alarm and then wait here while I take a look inside the house. Okay, thank you, officer. My name is Felicity Fairfield. While Officer Brody searched the house, I texted my parents to let them know what was going on. My dad told me that he'd be home in about 20 minutes. My mom said that she'd be home in about half an hour. After about 15 minutes, Officer Brody returned with an uneasy and slightly pale look on his face. Felicity, I didn't find any evidence of forced entry or of an intruder. All of the windows and doors were locked and secured. But what, officer? Well, I don't know a good way to say it, so I'll just say it. I had a weird feeling while I searched the old part of the house that looks like no one is living in it, said Officer Brody in a conflicted tone. I'm sorry, I don't understand, I replied as I squinted my eyes. I used to work for the NYPD, and it's the kind of feeling that I would sometimes get when I answered the call to a particularly heinous case. Call it a policeman's gut feeling. Trusting my gut is something that I learned to do on this job. I'm not sure of what to make of that. Was there anything else? I asked as I sat down on the porch. I don't know what to make of this myself, but have you had anything weird happen in your house? Officer Brody asked as he looked a bit unsure. Weird? Well, my alarm system just went off for no apparent reason, and it told me that there was something in the house and that I wasn't alone. Besides that, my friends and I heard what we thought was the sound of footsteps in the old section of the house last week, along with banging on the wall, footsteps going up the stairs, followed by the toilet flushing itself, I explained as I rubbed my right eye. Officer Brody's face became more pale as he said, I heard footsteps going up the stairs as well. I also thought that I had heard the faucet running in the upstairs bathroom. I would have been done checking the house about 5 minutes earlier, but I really wanted to double and triple check the house because of what I heard. Thanks for securing the house, Officer Brody. What could have caused the alarm to tell me those strange things? What triggered the alarm in the first place? I can't be sure. Like I said, I didn't find anything that triggered the alarm. I would call the security company and ask them about it. If your alarm is connected to Wi-Fi and your mobile devices, then it might be possible for someone to hack the system. That might explain both the trigger and the strange vocal warning, Officer Brody explained. That makes sense, and it sounds scary. We will call the security company to find out what we should do. Officer Brody then added, if possible, it might be a good idea to prevent the alarm from being able to connect to mobile devices. If that can't be done, then I'd look into replacing it with an alarm that can't connect to anything besides the dispatch center. Thanks again, Officer Brody. I really appreciate everything that you did. No problem. That's what we're here for. If you have any other problems, we'll be here. Take care, ma'am. Officer Brody walked off of the porch and spoke to my father, who had pulled into the driveway moments ago. Was the alarm malfunctioning? Was it hacked? Was I losing my mind? I didn't know the answers. If nothing else, I gained a story to tell the spooky squad. I hope you enjoyed your stay at the Half Moon Inn. Do come and visit us again. Until then, always remember that just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't there.